So we had talked about the 3 categories. You guys remember these? So we talked about the positions of authority, those issues which are clear issues of worship, and then those things that are in between where you're given some level of authority, like when you teach, when you give fatwa, if you are a Islamic academic, right, and you're dealing with others, you're doing research. And we had said that there are 3 levels to this. What did he say about this? That there is a person, if there is something where you can get a position of authority, what should I do? You guys forgot already? All of you? Huh? Okay, sure. So I have 2 options, right? If a position of authority opens up for me, I can either step up and take that position, or I can refrain. What is going to help me decide either or? Because we said that positions of leadership, do they have a lot of reward associated with them?
The reward, yeah. And
yes,
the risk.
right? Yeah, absolutely. So it's very high reward, but it's also very high risk, for sure. So how do I decide if it's worth the risk or not?
If you have previous experience of
excellent,
leadership and
right?
You were able to
So,
be good at it,
mashallah,
not
good.
Influence, or you were able to manage it, you should step up. But if you know
so,
if you're going to step up and
sure. So if I tested myself previously, right, that's a good gauge of whether I should step into this position or not. And what are some things that we had mentioned, or what are some things that come to mind for you guys when it comes to testing myself? Sure. What experiences could I use to gauge, like, okay, yeah, you know what, a leadership position, I'll be okay.
Big chunks of money financial, and you were able to, do it properly without.
So the money we'll get to.
Okay.
All right. I don't want to talk about money right now.
And I guess as a leadership,
huh?
maybe you were a senator or a president or whatever, or a community leader.
Okay.
Or
so I've jumped too far, right? So if the first thing I want to do is be president or senator,
yeah.
right? Like, I think I've bypassed a lot of steps to that point. All right, sure. Oh, let's take even a step before that.
The teacher.
Okay, so if I taught in a classroom, right? Oh, right. So we go somewhere and they're like, okay, hey, listen, Ibrahim, you're going to be the Amir for this trip, right? It's a very small scale thing. It's between friends. You guys go to a retreat and be like, okay, hey, listen, you're in charge of the room, right? These things happen, and they're very small scale. So what should I look for myself in those positions where I'm given like very small roles of leadership?
Where you're honest and you do equally as.
Right? Am I being honest? Am I being? What was the second thing you mentioned?
Equal, like,
am I being fair?
Fair,
right? Am I taking advantage of this position? How do I feel when I'm in that position? Because when a person is, or if a person is corrupted by power, what are some feelings that that person has?
I think like you gave a small example of.
Sure. Arrogance, what else? What is it that they feel that drives them to do more? I'm sorry?
They're in charge,
I'm not catching. It's insecure. I'm hearing like 3 different things at the same time. Okay, the feeling of power. Good. What else?
Feel they know better than everyone else.
Okay, like arrogance and pride, for sure. What else? So that power, what happens? Sure, you abuse, for sure. But how do I feel? What is my attitude toward that power? How do I know that, hey, this is a problem? Sure. What is it, though?
You're enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it, right? I keep wanting more. The power actually becomes intoxicating. And it's like a drug, right? So what are some of the feelings that I should be aware of when it comes to my relationship with that power? Where do I know? I'd be like, oh man, this is a problem.
If you're not like willing to leave it.
Right? If I don't want to step down, that's a huge red flag for myself, right? Like these are internal red flags that we need to look at. Yes?
be fair and all that and still enjoy it?
there's a difference between enjoying, right? So there can be enjoyment in the fact like, okay, alhamdulillah, I got this process in place, things are moving smoothly, people are getting their thing. I'm enjoying seeing people empowered, right? Like I'm enjoying seeing people empowered. I'm enjoying seeing justice being distributed and being, you know what I mean? Like I'm enjoying all of these things. Am I enjoying the power? It's a very different conversation. Right, because if I'm enjoying the power, like I said, it can become very intoxicating. And the problem in this situation with power, it becomes very similar to any type of substance that can be abused. And why do people abuse substances? Right, okay, why? Why does addiction happen? Right, they want more. Like sometimes it's a control thing, right? The more I drink, or the more drugs I use, there's a huge issue of control that's definitely there, right? And I feel like the more I consume of this, the more control I have. What's another reason people fall into substance abuse? I mean, Allah protect us and our families. Yes. Right. So that rush, right? That euphoria that a person gets, and which can be very directly related to when I have power, right? I get that sense of euphoria, and I want to keep having that feeling. And the easiest way for me, because the thing is, with power, just having it is not, you're not going to experience that. When do you feel that? When do you get that feeling of euphoria? When you actually exert it. Right? When you actually press that power. You guys can say I have a bad relationship with power, right? No. But this, right? You get this feeling of euphoria when you actually exert that power, right? When you're actually able to do something with it. Because just having it, because we all have power, right? All of us. It's all dormant, or it's benign, or like we all have a sense of control on certain elements in our life, correct? But until we're actually able to exert that power on something, we don't know how intoxicating it is. Because the moment we use that power, it's like pressing on an accelerator, right? Like when you're driving. And what happens? Right? And the more you press, what happens? Right? The more exciting it becomes. And it's the same thing, right? So imagine power is this vehicle. And if I drive that vehicle safely, if I drive it responsibly, what happens? I'm good, right? I fulfilled everybody's rights. Nobody's getting hurt. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. Not just that, I'm able to fulfill a lot of tasks in a very meaningful way. And if I start speeding, and I start running red lights, I start running stop signs, I start cutting people off, those individual tasks, what am I feeling? So every time I run that red light, every time I cut someone off, I run that stop sign, I keep going faster and faster. What's happening inside? Huh? Well, maybe not agitated, but when I'm doing it, I'm agitated because I see people doing that, for sure. But I myself, how am I feeling when I'm doing those things? I'm starting to get more and more excited, right? The more I'm doing it, the more emboldened I feel. It's the same thing with power, right? The more I exert it and the more I push it and the more I take advantage, the more euphoric it feels, right? And that dopamine rush that you guys were talking about, it's definitely there. And it can become very dangerous. May Allah protect us. So that's a very easy gauge, right? That's a very easy personal gauge. It's like, okay, when I'm put in these small positions where I'm given authority or I'm given license to do something, I'm sorry.
It is dangerous when you start violating other people's rights.
Absolutely. Like well, not just that, right? I wish it was as simple as violating other people's rights. What is another good gauge, right? Because the problem is like, I can exert power on others and I might not be violating anything. I'm still exerting it though. It's like, Fahmi, go get me coffee. Right? Like, I'm exerting power on him. Did I ask him to do anything wrong? No. Did I oppress him in any way? No, right? I'm asking a kid to go get me something to drink. completely reasonable and within my rights. So this interaction, how do I know it's okay and how do I know it's a problem? Because I haven't taken anybody's rights here. He still has to get me coffee. No, I'm just kidding. Huh? Right, the state of my heart. What's happening here? Right? Because sometimes this isn't a good gauge, right? Like our worldly interactions and dealings. But this right here is an excellent gauge. And how do I know that? Because the Prophet ﷺ made it and told us that this is our gauge. He said, "Istafti qalbak walau aftak an-nas." He says that ask your heart, even when the people give you advice, and even if the people tell you what to do. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what people tell me. They can tell me whatever they want. Who's going to be responsible? I will. Can I be like, oh yeah, well, yeah, Allah Mahdi was telling me that. How well is that going to go? It's not going to work at all. Because at the end of the day, all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to tell me is what? Who made the decision? Right? That's the only question that needs to be asked. Regardless of what people told you, who made the decision? I did. So that's where the responsibility comes in. And it's very important to understand, like, yes, like we have this compass that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Many times, it is our ego that prevents us from trusting it. If my heart is telling me like, hey, red alert, this is a problem, this is an issue. Oh, I'll get over it. Or I'll figure it out. That's just pure pride, right? That's pure pride. If my heart is telling me like, yo, this is a problem. We need to get out of this situation. And I'm still pushing through. That's only my pride. That's it. So like I said, that the external interactions, it can be. But there are situations where it's clear. It's like, if I have to go get coffee for the whole class. Right? This, now I'm starting to push the limits. And that's like, even other people will be like, yo, that's not cool. But this here, it's always going to be a good gauge. The heart, our hearts don't deceive us. Sometimes our emotions can, for sure, right? Right, but they're different things. Like they're related, right? They're interrelated, but they're also very different. Oops, what did I do? The second one here, so this one I have a decision. I can decide on whether I should engage or whether I should recluse myself or remove myself. And Imam Ghazali, and I agree with this 100%, what does he say is safer when it comes to positions of authority?
Stay away.
To stay away. He's like, in general, try to avoid it. In general, try to avoid it. In general, try to stay away from it, because the chances of falling victim to that power are higher than not. The second one, when it comes to issues of worship, who has to do them? Everyone. Does it matter how strong I am? Does it matter how weak I am? Right? It doesn't matter what my attitude is. If I have a problem in showing off in my prayer, do I just stop praying? No, I can't. That is not a choice. What do I have to do? I have to fix it. Right? I have to. And how do I do it? I have to fix it while continuing to pray. Right? This is something that's really important. Like here, he says that there's something that's intermediate. Meaning I don't have full authority. I don't have full power. I have the ability maybe to influence. I have the ability to advise, right? Because just a random person, how acceptable would that person's advice be? If I had just someone come and walk up to me and be like, Akhi, I think red looks better on you.
It's an advice, whereas you feel like a judge or something, you're going to wear red or you're going to...
Sure, it's very different than telling someone that you have to do something and I have the ability to enforce it. But just a random person walks up to me and be like, yeah, I think a red flannel would have looked better on you. I'd be like, who are you? Right? You know what I mean? Like, we would totally dismiss that. But if that person was my teacher, how much value would that statement have? Right? It would have more value. If that person was somebody who I trust. If that person was somebody of a person of authority or position. Because many times when we talk about like this issue of like power dynamics, and it's a very modern discussion, but at the same time, you have Imam Ghazali talking about it, where you have people who are put in positions of authority. What happens is like, okay, yeah, they can't necessarily dictate things, But do they have the ability to have a strong influence? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. They can have a strong influence on people. And if I'm in a position where I'm able to exert this like strong influence, I need to be very careful. In this situation, in this third category, what does he say that a person should do? So we said this one, weak people should definitely stay away. And this one, everybody has to, right? It doesn't matter if you're strong or weak. And over here, what does he say?
He also says it's best to stay away from teaching.
No.
If you don't know, better to get.
So this issue, we'll assume that the knowledge is there. Let's say that either the knowledge is there or the person has the ability to get that knowledge. Sometimes people can study, right? A person can go and study. A person can, like I have some classmates. They went, they studied, then they came back and they opened up a business. They've decided not to teach. Right? They have the knowledge, but they're not teaching. So in this situation, what is best? We said over here, the weak should avoid. Over here, everybody. Over here, what?
Is it obligatory if you have knowledge to share it?
Yes and no. If there is no one else fulfilling that purpose, and you're the one that knows it, you are obligated to share. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man katama ilm." He said, whoever hides knowledge. Hiding means that I'm actively preventing people from accessing it. Does that make sense? Versus not teaching. Because at the end of the day, and actually, I mean, it's like tangentially related. I remember I was at Dar al-Noor and we were talking about the situation where like there's a Islamic leader or a Muslim leader who fell into a situation of abuse, and they were like, okay, well, what are some of the things that, let's say, an imam can do to prevent himself from falling into those things? It's like, okay, well, a teacher shouldn't have a relationship with their student, and if there's a student either that he is attracted to or she is attracted to him, what should happen ideally?
He should stop.
Right? Yeah. So he's like, no, you can't come to my class anymore. Simple as that. So a response might be, okay, well, how is she supposed to learn? Exactly. That is the answer. She can go somewhere else, right? She's not obligated to go to that particular class, or she's not obligated to go to that particular teacher. So there are reasonable, meaningful ways to that. So when it comes to this issue of like, quote unquote, hiding is like actively doing it, right? Which is very different versus making yourself unavailable for something. Because at the end of the day, does the community rely on me only for their knowledge base? No. And even if somebody wants to argue, it's like, oh, well, you know, you're the only imam and this and that. I was like, well, there were classes before I came, right? There are classes concurrently going on right now, and the classes will continue. This role, let's say my role is my own personal contribution, right? This is what I'm doing for my benefit. It's not necessary for me to be here, because in this position it could be anyone. So the last part here, yeah. So he said that this is one where both the strong and weak can engage, because at the end of the day, even though they have the ability to influence, they don't have the ability to control and enforce. And an individual should constantly be working to build themselves up to be strong. But it's not as traumatic, it's not as damaging as a leadership position, where it should be avoided by people who are weak. This one, he's like, it's okay, gauge yourself. If you don't have if you don't get there, it's fine. Keep working, keep trying to improve, because at the end of the day, like I said, when you don't have the ability to actually enforce power, all the damage is going to be where? It's going to be here, right? It's going to be in the heart, because even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about those leaders who are oppressive and take advantage and but the other group of people He talks about are the scholars, where a scholar will come and stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said that I sought knowledge seeking your face only, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he'll respond to him saying what? Kadhabt. He said, you lied. You're lying. You only sought knowledge to what? So that people would call you a scholar. And he'll be thrown by his face into the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us.
Where does
Yeah.
where does sunnah and nawafil fall in relation to those?
In terms of? Oh, these? I'm sorry, worship? Everybody needs to do it.
The sunnah.
Yeah. And well, so the sunan it's a little bit of a different conversation. You have some people who say that, oh, somebody who like abandons the sunan altogether, that this person is sinful. No. A person is sinful only if they abandon their obligations. You can never say a person is sinful for abandoning extra. That doesn't make sense. You can say that, okay, leaving off the sunan is something that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do. You can say that the majority of the companions, this is not something that they did. But you have the hadith of the Bedouin who came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, teach me about Islam. And he said, okay, well, you have to believe in Allah, you have to believe in His Messenger, you have to do 5 daily prayers. And he said, okay, is there anything more? He said, yeah, you can do sunan and nawafil if you want to. He said, okay. He said, okay, what else? He's like, fasting. He said, okay, are there more than outside of Ramadan? He said, yeah, if you want to. They're considered extra. He said, okay, what about zakat? The Prophet ﷺ said, and there's zakat. And he said, okay, is there more than that? He said, yes, if you want to give extra. So the Bedouin, he said to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, all of the things that you said that I have to do, I'm going to do them, and I'm not going to decrease from them anything, nor will I increase on that. Meaning, I'm only going to do what? The bare minimum. He turned around, he walked away, he got on his camel, he fell off his camel, broke his neck. The Prophet ﷺ, he walked toward him, right? Like he's like, oh man, this guy fell off his camel. And when he saw him, he kind of backed off. And the companions, they said, what happened? Like, why were you so shocked? Like, what was it that caused you to be so shocked? He said, I saw the angels giving him the fruits of paradise. And he hadn't done any actions. But what did he promise? That he's going to do what he has to do, right? He's going to do the obligations, but he never promised he was going to do what? The sunnah. This is not an encouragement, okay? I want to be very clear. I'm not encouraging anyone to not do your sunnah. The virtues of doing your sunnah, they will fill in any gaps that we have in our obligations. Try to take advantage of the different seasons. Try to take advantage of days that have blessing. Take advantage of times that have blessing. Do the best that you can. At the end of the day, ultimately our goal is even to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept one deed from us. Right? That's what we hope for. And the more deeds I have to present, what happens? The greater chance there is that He will accept that. So, like I said, it's not an encouragement, but it's also important to understand, like, there's a threshold for everything. And we shouldn't look down at people who only do their obligations, because maybe it only appears like they're doing it, but in other aspects of their life, like, okay, maybe they're going above and beyond. And sometimes the opposite, right? Sometimes they're doing like all different types of worship, but you don't really see them, they're not particularly generous, or you know what I mean? Like, I think people excel and shine in different ways, and we shouldn't look down on that. But yeah, so yeah, everybody please do your nawafil, in addition to your obligations. The fourth rank. So this is the final one, and it has to do with what you had mentioned, and this is an issue of money. Why does he create a separate category for this? Huh? Yeah, I mean, money is it's a big fitna, right? Money in and of itself and by itself, it's a huge fitna. Why is that? What is our relationship with money? Greedy? All of us? Dang.
I think it depends on the person.
Depends on the person, absolutely. But in general, how does mankind feel about wealth? They love it, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has put it in our nature. تُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. Like, we love wealth. We love having wealth. We love being wealthy. We love this idea of money. So when it comes to this idea of charity, why is it so challenging? You have to give something that you love. And it's amazing, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that مَا نَقَصَ مِن مَالِ صَدَقَةٍ, that sadaqah doesn't decrease wealth. But if I have $100 and I give $5, what happens to my wealth? I got 95. Right? I have $95 left. What did the Prophet ﷺ mean by that?
I think he told us I'm sorry, I forget, that you give, it's not going to decrease it from your risk.
Sure. Okay, so meaning that whatever my risk is, that I'm still going to attain it. Sure, that's one meaning. What's another meaning that we can take away from it?
You lose the $5 for something else.
That this $5 is something better or something else is going to replace it. Absolutely. What else?
No, I mean,
Uh-huh.
you would lose it for something else. Maybe you'll get sick, right? So you have to spend
Okay. Tayyib. So that money will protect me in some way? No?
Not, I mean,
Uh-huh.
in
Okay.
some cases, yeah,
Okay.
but you could lose it not for getting sick, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, let's say, I don't know, an appliance in your
Okay.
just-
Tayyib. Meaning that money would have been taken from me. It would have been spent in some way. So it is better that it is used like this. Mumtaz. Good. What else? That even though my money might physically be less, the blessings that I have will only increase. Right? All of these are potential meanings that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant. Because it's clear that he didn't mean the literal meaning. Right? So there is definitely a metaphorical aspect to that that's important for us to recognize. And the problem with giving that he's talking about is giving specifically when we give in public. Right? That's where it becomes tough. That's where it becomes challenging. Sometimes, even when we're asked to give, it's like, hey, there's an appeal, or like, hey, there's this charity, or hey, we need this money for this. What happens? It can be performative for sure. And not just that. Am I giving this money because I feel bad? Right? Sometimes, is emotional blackmail a thing? Right? Sometimes that happens too. It's like I feel bad if I say no.
Sometimes the opposite is like, you raise your hand.
Is that me? Am I pressing something? I'm sorry? Oh, where we go? Yeah.
I've seen that used as like a fundraising technique, certain masajid, where you shame you to give your money.
Oh, yes. Okay. So you're talking about from the point a person who's doing the appeal, right? So they are the ones who are emotionally blackmailing you. So there's a difference between feeling emotionally blackmailed and actually emotionally blackmailing people. It's like, do you want paradise or not?
It's like whether you bought a house.
It's like, oh man, the individual shaming. That's like, oh man, that's like next level. That's subhanAllah. It's amazing. I've actually seen this like, hey, you just bought a new car. Like, and I'm like, wow, this is getting really personal. Okay, so the person who's using that as a tool, is that bad? Like, we shouldn't emotionally blackmail, right? That's not. I don't think. Will I get the money if I do that? Yeah, probably. But I don't think it builds like healthy mental relationships between things. And when we do things like that, we want people to feel empowered. I feel a better way of doing fundraising is transparency, right? I think that's the most meaningful way, where you actually tell people what the phases are and tell them what the steps are and show them where the money's going, right? I think that's more encouraging than like being like, oh, you suck if you don't give the money, and like I don't like that. It creates a negative association, which I don't like. Okay, well, what about me as the giver? So I'm the one who's giving the money, and I'm feeling emotionally blackmailed. What harm can that cause? It can create resentment that I walk away from the fundraiser, or I walk away from the appeal, or I walk away from the person. How do I feel then? Huh? It's like, man, why'd I give that money? I didn't want to. I really wanted that ice cream. Like, like that can definitely happen, right? There's a sense of resentment, or man, that's not really the cause I wanted to give to, right? That happens, and that's real. Sometimes also is you give it, and then later, and it's like, I don't think my intention was, you know what I mean? I don't think my intention was there, and there's a level of regret that, man, I wish I had taken the opportunity to clear my intention before I gave that money, right? I think there's an element of that can happen too.
And also, talking about fundraising, I wish maybe next year,
Mm.
I think I talked to you about this, if they can also talk about like how volunteering for the wanted
Sure,
can be part of
Absolutely.
giving to,
no, it definitely is, right?
like, we
Be-
can even volunteer to fundraise somewhere else.
Sure.
You
No,
know,
well, not just that, giving time. Like the two things that we have control over are time and money. So even when I'm giving time, right, what is that? That's giving it a resource that the masjid is in need of. So there are different ways definitely to contribute, and that's something that's important to point out and to keep in mind. But we also have to make sure that we are cleaning our hearts when we're giving that money, and that we don't, it doesn't become a thing of show, and it doesn't become a thing of ego. And when it comes to these like fundraisers and people are raising their hands, is that a problem? Yes and no, right? For sure. Why is it bad?
if you are showing off,
It can definitely fall into showing off. Okay, why? Huh?
Person engaged, and you should know why you're.
Sure. I mean, for
You
sure.
might be doing it for kind of to motivate people. That's different.
So that what's good about it? That sometimes when I see, it's like, oh man, Ahmed's giving 1,000. Man, I should be. You know what I mean? Like I should be able to do this.
Step up too,
I should step up too, man. It's like and sometimes it's like, man, this he's having like so many problems with his car and blah blah blah, and he's still coming up with that money, and I'm doing okay, right? Like it helps create perspective sometimes too, and it's really motivating. It's like, man, mashallah, man. Like I want to do that too. I want that dua too, right? Like sometimes like they'll make dua for the people who are like giving and stuff like that. It's like, man, I want that too, and getting caught up in the emotion, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as I make sure that my intention is pure. Fahmi, you can't drink on the carpet, bro.
Oh,
Please, just take the chair, sit there. Here, you want me to hold the soda?
sure.
Do you want me to drink it?
Oh, no.
Okay. Yes.
So the person who feels emotionally blackmailed and then gives in that situation,
Yeah.
do you think they get rewarded?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Because there are a few issues. Can I back project intention? So if I did 2 rakat, right, and I was like, yeah, you know, my family's watching me, I need to show that I'm pious, so I recite a little bit nicer, and like, you know, I have the full prayer. Then I give taslim, and I regret it, and I'm like, oh man, I should have done that for Allah. Hey Allah, can you can you take my intention and back project it?
Maybe Allah will reward you for the regret.
So that's different though,
With the actual
right?
itself.
There's a difference between having regret, making tawbah, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to create other opportunities for me, you know what I mean? But the opportunity for reward, in that instance, it's gone. Does that mean that other opportunities can't be created? No, absolutely not. And not just that, the moment I make tawbah, I make istighfar, what happens? There's a reward that's there. But that opportunity, I think, is gone. And which is why intentionality is so important, right? And why it's so tough. Like this idea and concept of taqwa, you know why it's so hard? Because you have to constantly do it. Like, you know what I mean? You constantly need to be aware. And sometimes like we forget, you know, even like interactions, like why am I going this way? Even like, and just imagine, you know, before I open my door, I remember Allah. Before I sit down, I remember Allah. Before I speak to someone, I remember Allah. Before I deal with someone, before I pay for something, how different would our interactions be? Right? Like it's like a complete paradigm shift on how we deal with things. It's like I see people raising their hands, right? And I'm getting excited. What should I take that opportunity to do? Remember Allah, correct my intention. Like, you know, it's at that moment, because it's always important not to get caught up in the emotional wave, even though it's really easy to. And it's at that moment, what is going to control that? What characteristic do I need to have at that moment? Taqwa. Ahsant, good. Because it is only taqwa that will help me channel that emotion in a meaningful way. Because like we had always say this, right? Emotions aren't bad. Emotions are important, right? It's an important part of who we are. It's an important part of how we gauge the environment and how we deal with the world around us. But they have to be channeled in meaningful ways. And the only way to meaningfully channel emotion is by using taqwa as the guide. So I can express happiness, I can express sadness, I can express anger, right? Even anger. These are important emotions. These are not only important, I will say they're necessary emotions. Pain, it's necessary emotions. And I need taqwa to channel them in a meaningful way. So that when I do that action, regardless of the outcome, I'll be happy with what happens. You know, yes?
So how did we get here? The way we're doing fundraisers,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you think about Prophet's, Prophet Muhammad
So.
time, when he did the fundraiser
Yeah.
for war, right? People, Omar came back with half of his money, Abu Bakr came back with
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, him asking them, who's going to give me 1,000
Sure.
dinars? So,
Absolutely.
So it was all voluntary.
Terry, yes.
Why don't we do it the same way here? Just ask people, if they want to volunteer, they can come up with the amount they want to do, but without that push, right?
Sure. So I think the push is, it can be necessary motivation so people have an idea of what the scale is. Also,
Still
yeah.
announce. I mean, I
Sure.
can go and say, I'm giving
Yeah.
this amount of money.
Sure.
They can do that.
I don't know, like, I haven't been in the fundraising space long enough to know why they use this method. I imagine because it's effective, right? There's a level of experience that's involved with a lot of these fundraisers. I'm saying even fundraisers that are normally done. Do you guys know when the fundraising starts? It definitely starts before the day of the fundraiser. So at least for Al-Hijrah, I can't speak on every organization, but by the time the fundraiser has already started, I would say probably half to 2/3 of the pledges have already been secured. So why do we have these banquets?
I mean, at some point they were pushing, regular deposits, right?
Sure.
Give through direct.
Mm-hmm.
And then they still
Sure.
come back.
Yeah.
Fundraiser.
Well, because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know many nonprofits that are fully established off of the endowments and properties and income that they have. They're still very heavily reliant on donations. And these are nonprofits that have been in the United States, at least, forget worldwide, since the founding of the United States. And they still have donation models. So these are like many of the churches. You pay a tithe, right? I have to pay a subscription fee to a particular church. What is that? It's a donation, right? But what is the difference? It's a mandatory donation that they have to give. So either we have to offer a completely alternative model, or say, okay, no, you know what? Which I'm okay with. Like I think moving toward endowments to cover at the least the function of the institution and the salaries, I think that's a minimum. I think we need to get to that point, and any expansion projects, changing the carpet, renovation, that can come from donations. So how do you get to that point? How willing are most people to invest in, like, okay, we're going to start an investment account for Al-Hijrah. How many of you here would like to donate? Versus, we're changing out the carpets, or we're changing out the tiles. How many tiles would you like to buy? Right, one has the emotional plea to it. It has that emotional draw to it. One is just not as sexy, right? It's just not. If I say, like, it's not as attractive. If I say to you, hey, who wants to open up an investment account for Like, who's going to give the first $10,000 for an investment account for the Al-Hijrah? What is that going to do? Well, we're going to try to collect dividends off of those investments.
I think if you educate the community on that, second one would be more beneficial.
It's more beneficial.
Yeah, the reason is like, second one, if you educate the, and they know it's gonna, but
I already agree with you.
Yeah.
Like you're preaching to the choir right now. but I'm just telling you, one, there's, you know what the difference is? Ahsant. One is instant gratification. I will see the tile that's purchased. I will see the carpet that's replaced. I will see the mihrab that's there. Versus this nebulous idea of an investment account. You were going to say something, Muhammad?
Yeah, I was going to say that different things attract different people.
Sure.
And even if an organization was to switch to focusing more on their endowment,
Yeah.
they still collect money.
Yeah.
And great examples of that are universities who operate completely off of their endowments,
Yes.
but still call their alumni every week.
Yep,
Donate
they do.
$20 for some reason.
Absolutely. No, 100%. They just become like this big nebulous institutions, right? And it's just a matter of how do I get more money? And even the alumni, why do they keep donating? It's like because they want continued prestige for that institution because they can say I graduated from there, right? So, I mean, man, why did you even open that door, dude? But like,
But again, I think
Yeah.
the problem is not the donation.
yeah,
It's
How
like
they-
this
The way-
forcing the way to
Sure.
the
Well, I
fundraiser. I mean,
Yeah.
I would
It
I would
looks
love to
like-
have an experiment.
Yeah.
1 year during Ramadan, right? I mean, on.
Oh,
everybody's willing to give.
Yeah,
You don't
that-
have to give-
no one is willing to engage in that experiment.
Exactly. So I want to see an experiment. 1 year they do the fundraiser, one
Sure.
day they don't. They let people
Yeah.
donate just based on their own,
Sure.
intention.
Yeah.
And let's see, is it really more effective?
Yeah, I mean,
And what's the price?
So-
For that resentment, I
so-
don't think that.
so I've tried doing fundraisers for my department specifically, and I would tell everyone like we need this much. I would just say, listen, we need 20,000, 30,000, whatever the case might is. I have 5 slots for 5,000 for whoever would like to give it. None? Okay, 3,000. Like, and you just go down the list. I'm not big on the emotional please. I'm like, hey, this is what we did, right? This is the work that I've done. If you think it's worthwhile and you want to expand on it, then this is how you can give the money. Like I said, I'm big on transparency. I think that is the best way to convince people versus, like, wouldn't you want your mother to be in paradise and all of a sudden be like, where did this money come from? Who, and then you find out it was you who had given it on her behalf and she entered paradise because of that. It's a beautiful story, right? But again, the emotional pleas are the ones that, like, that's what brings the draw. I don't think it's wrong. Is it my preferred way? No. It feels a little slimy. Like, it feels a little wrong, but it's yeah. It's
You're like to finish thoroughly, and I want to be listening 1 hour.
But so here, let me yeah.
This way.
Yeah.
Sister, even you and me, I agree with you,
Yeah.
but are we going to just decide by ourselves to give that money?
No, I'm saying,
You've already made your decision.
but I'm saying my pushback on that would be, you're right. We all want to pray, we all want to do tarawih, but the institution definitely needs the money because we have to pay for the electricity.
There's no other
We have to
way.
pay.
You're
Right.
not selling anything.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
We can say we need, just
Yeah.
like you said, we
Yeah.
need $100,000.
Something needs to be
And
motivated.
then let everybody
Something.
donate
Sure.
when they go home or just to do it
Yeah.
on their app or whatever.
Sure.
Without,
Yeah,
is it really not effective? That's what I'd like to see.
I don't know.
It's just you're
Yeah, I know.
approaching to hundreds of thousands of different people with different thoughts, different
Sure.
opinions. And so far, what
It-
he's trying to say, this has been kind of a
No, it's the status quo.
working way.
I'm saying so the thing is,
That's why-
yeah, if you the problem is, you know what the problem is? What do we do if the experiment fails? Can I come to you and be like, yeah, ukhti, listen, we tried the experiment, we didn't get the 100,000.
No, but I mean, you don't have to do that on a large scale. Just pick a day. Okay, not Laylatul Qadr, pick another day,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
Jumu'ah, or I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, they do
Like Isha, like after
all the
Isha.
time.
like right now.
It's like we Muslims did the experiment of not voting.
Sure.
And now Trump is president.
So the experiment worked.
But also, the
Yes.
other face of it is, what's the damage? People leave during that night,
Yeah.
they hate the experience, maybe they're not gonna
Sure.
come back.
No,
after.
I agree. So how do you minimize some of those things? Again, transparency. Like, listen, we're only going to use this much time, and actually sticking by that time.
Okay.
Right? That, because people, they can put in their heads like, okay, I only have to put up with this for 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
If they know. And then call us, bismillah. You know, if they get it, they get it. They don't get it, mashi. Like, I guess you guys don't like electricity. No, I mean, like, you know, there are different ways, you know, obviously. We want to try to make the experience as pleasurable as possible for everyone while keeping in mind the needs of the institution. But Klaus, we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue. I know this is a very lively discussion, but I'm sure we've solved all of the institution's financial problems today, alhamdulillah. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. Yes.
I'm curious about your thoughts. Like, I once visited Texas. I went to a masjid there, and they're like building an entire